hear me out here. Even if you didn't grow up watching SpongeBob SquarePants as a kid, this show has without a doubt had an effect on you. Whether it be your sense of humor, your outlook on life, or simply just the memes that you see on your phone while scrolling. SpongeBob having an effect on you one way or another is simply unavoidable. And the reason for that is because the show is an absolute cultural icon. It literally came out of nowhere, just whipped out its massive comedic energy and flopped it on the table, immediately asserting its dominance over all other cartoons on TV. By the end of its first month airing, it became the top Saturday morning cartoon for kids. Then, of course, the second and third seasons did nothing but skyrocket the success, resulting in SpongeBob becoming the highest rated children's show on television. It's no secret that SpongeBob changed the world, without a doubt. Sure, that spark may have faded over time as Nickelodeon would wring every last cent out of that poor sponge. But that doesn't undo the effect that the first couple of seasons had on not only kids at the time, but society as a whole. I mean, even the people who didn't like the show would ironically find themselves oftentimes consumed by spreading their message about how awful the show is for your kids. Whether you love it or hate it, the fact of the matter though is that the numbers speak for themselves. SpongeBob has been everywhere. Broadcasted in over 180 countries, translated in more than 30 languages, enjoyed by people all over the world, myself included. That's why today, we're continuing a journey that I've been on for a few years now. An adventure in combing through every single episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. Well, at least the first few seasons. To pick apart what makes these episodes so amazing, so hilarious, and all in all, so special. Just in case you missed it, I've already covered the entirety of Season 1 and part of Season 2 in past videos. I'll have them linked in a playlist in the description box down below so you can check them out after this one. However, today on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're going to dive right back down to Bikini Bottom and continue this trek right where we left off. Picking back up with an episode so tragic that it honestly might be the first episode we've covered so far that I kind of surprisingly don't like a bit. Before we get into it though, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and for clicking on this video. 2025 has been a weird year for content creators, with generated content being at an all-time high. As someone who does this for my own creative outlet, it's kind of frustrating. However, it does make me all the more appreciative of the dedicated audience that I've grown. You all are the absolute best. I am so thankful for the fact that I woke up this morning to breathe air, regardless of whatever else the world throws at all of us. And I'm so glad that we get to gather here together to just enjoy some nostalgia. Because sometimes, when life gives you lemons, all you can do is watch some SpongeBob. So, with that being said, let's make some lemonade, my friends. Dude, this song, man. It's just too perfect for this episode. The melody and everything, it perfectly encapsulates the feeling of heartbreak at a betrayal, and it sets the mood for this episode just all too accurately. So as this episode starts out, we see Gary sitting in the middle of a clearing while SpongeBob sneaks in the background, preparing to get the drop on him as the two play a game of tag.
Tag, you're it! Ah! Gary will never find me here. Uh-oh. Tag! Now I'm it! Ah!
SpongeBob slides right down the side of his pineapple to be met by Patrick. He invites Patrick to join on their game of tag, and just like that, they are all having a blast together. He ends up tagging Gary, only to be left confused though when Gary clings to his back and starts purring loudly.
What's with Gary? He sounds like a motorboat.
That's just a snail's way of saying he likes you.
Tickles.
After laughing all day, SpongeBob says that it's time for him and the Gare Bear to get home, so he grabs Gary to bring him inside. When SpongeBob gets to his door though, he realizes that Gary slipped out of his arms and is nowhere to be seen. SpongeBob heads on over to Patrick's rock to see if Gary's there, and he finds him stuck to Patrick's stomach as he's brushing his teeth and armpits before bed.
Come on, Gary. We've got to let Patrick go to sleep.
I don't mind SpongeBob. In fact, why don't you let Gary sleep over at my house tonight?
Hey, that's a great idea.
A sleepover, oh boy! Oh, this is gonna be great, Gary. We could stay up till dawn and watch scary movies, and eat popcorn, and play board games.
Gee,
blah, blah, blah,
this is
blah,
great.
blah, blah, blah,
My
blah,
two best friends
blah,
in the
blah, blah,
whole
and blah,
sea
blah, blah,
having
blah,
a
blah, blah.
sleepover.
SpongeBob heads home and goes to bed, and when he wakes up the next morning, Patrick is already up and at him outside of his window, excited to show him how no matter where he goes, Gary seems to follow. After watching Gary follow Patrick all over their neighborhood, SpongeBob decides that it's his turn to play, as he calls Gary to chase him now.
Isn't this great, Gary? Me running around and you chasing me? You're not chasing me.
Come on, Gary. Let's go play a different game.
SpongeBob tries multiple times to get Gary's attention, however, he's left confused when Gary just seemingly won't give him the time of day. He crawls all over Patrick, purring, while SpongeBob pulls out his favorite toy, his snail nip, and even puts himself in danger, begging for Gary's help. Unfortunately though, it's all useless, as Gary just seems completely obsessed with Patrick.
Gary, you stop this foolishness right now. Gary the snail, answer me when I'm talking to you. Okay, that's it, mister. You are coming home with me right this instant. Say goodbye to Patrick, Gary.
Hold it right there, Dad, Mom, Angry Pants.
Patrick says that SpongeBob should let Gary decide who he wants to go with, and at that, SpongeBob sets Gary down, reminding him of how he's been the one to take care of him his entire life. But Gary just immediately turns around and ignores SpongeBob's pleas.
Gary, turn around, Gary, turn around. Gary, no. Gary, no. No, don't do it, Gary. No, Gary.
Well. I guess that answers that question. So long, SpongeBob. Gary and me got stuff to do.
Okay, fine. If that's the way you want to thank me for all that I've done.
SpongeBob goes home and cries into Gary's bowl, heartbroken. However, after wallowing for a while, he decides to pull himself out of it and try to move on by finding another pet. He starts out by getting a pet worm, Rex, though he just kind of sits there panting like a dog, leaving Gary and Patrick completely unfazed.
Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? I'm sure glad we went our separate ways, Gary. A worm really is the pet for me. So loyal, so trusting, always by my side!
After Rex runs away, SpongeBob decides that he's done with worms and he comes home carrying a new pet crate. He sets it down and calls out his new pet snail, Larry.
Come on, let me show you around, Larry. Meow.
SpongeBob tries to feed Larry some dinner, but he just hisses angrily at him. Later on, when it's time for bed, SpongeBob shows Larry to his bed, but he's none too enthused.
That's where
SpongeBob sleeps on the floor, sadly using the bits of shredded paper for a blanket. The next morning, he finds Larry watching TV when he excitedly jumps up to him, wanting to tell him a joke.
What do you call a snail on a ship? A snailer! Ah! Ah! Don't you get it, Larry? A snailer. Gosh, Larry sure is different than Gary. And Gary and Larry are real different than Jerry.
SpongeBob sobs and weeps, reflecting on how much he misses Gary. All of a sudden, though, as he cries, Patrick and Gary show up out of nowhere as Patrick asks if he can do some laundry and maybe borrow some detergent.
Do you want fresh scent or heavy to
Here it comes.
to Gary! Please come back, Gary! Please come home! I'm a wreck without you!
SpongeBob tries to tell Gary that if he comes home, he can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and have anything that he wants. However, as Patrick calls him pathetic, Gary seems to pay SpongeBob no mind at all. Patrick goes about doing his laundry as he tells SpongeBob that he had his chance and failed and that Gary is with him now. All the while, Gary is currently crawling off of Patrick and into the washing machine, leading to the realization that what he actually wanted this whole time was a cookie that Patrick had in his pocket.
Gary? Whee! Oh, Gary, I knew you'd never leave me! Aw. Let's go for a walk, pal.
Gary? I thought what we had was special!
Oh man, this episode. There's just so many mixed emotions here. Right out of the gate, though this episode isn't my favorite and I honestly do kind of dislike it, I still really appreciate the gags that we saw in this one. It was just chock full of iconic jokes and moments, but at the same time there's actually a few moments here that are criminally underrated as well in my opinion. Before I dive into the good though, I just have to get the poison out. I have to purge the bad so we can move on in a more positive direction. Thankfully, there really isn't much bad, and truly most of it's blatantly obvious. For example, the way that Patrick is just such a calloused jerk in this episode. He doesn't show any care for the fact that SpongeBob is hurt, really just only feeling satisfied that Gary seemingly chose him. In all reality though, from the get-go, Patrick is the one in the wrong for practically forcing SpongeBob to give him his pet. Like, you don't come up to someone who owns a dog that likes you and try to set up a situation where you become the new owner of the dog just because you think the dog likes you more. The audacity too of not only taking SpongeBob's pet, but also helping himself to SpongeBob's washing machine and soap, all the while being a condescending jerk, telling SpongeBob that he needs to stop living in the past and that he had his chance and failed? I mean, come on, we're used to seeing Patrick being obnoxious and completely brain dead, but him being such a jerk just feels so out of character and it is admittedly frustrating. Furthermore, Patrick being left sad and crying at the end when literally he just called SpongeBob pathetic for being sad about Gary seemingly leaving him? This moment honestly frustrates me because a lot of Patrick's humor has always been rooted in backwards logic and hypocrisy. But to be honest, this one really just looms way too far into the territory of annoying hypocrisy. Patrick's lack of self-awareness can be funny at times, but it's times like this where we really see it turn ugly and leave the territory of comedy. It's honestly hard to enjoy a joke when the character who's supposed to represent the punchline just drives you insane with their absolute jerk behavior. And I mean, like, Patrick and that toothbrush dude, he goes back and forth between brushing his teeth and his armpits, and it just invokes a very particular kind of ick in my brain. I mean, the guy has always been disgusting, but this is where we really start getting into putrid territory. I don't know. Honestly, I don't remember if I pointed this out already in my past videos in this series. However, this feels like we're officially, fully done with the semi-smart Season 1 Patrick. I mean, remember the episode where Patrick watches SpongeBob take his boating exam through a telescope all the way from SpongeBob's house? He came up with the idea to put the walkie-talkie in SpongeBob's head, cover the antenna with a hat, and talk him flawlessly through the entire exam. Looking at this Patrick, just one measly season later, yeah, we've made a full departure from the Patrick that we used to know. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the stupid Season 2 Patrick, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel at least a little melancholic about the fact that we're done reviewing Season 1. It just had such a different vibe and feel, and the art, though it's great here, was just so gritty and rustic in the first season, which added much more charm in my opinion. Overall, I love Season 2, it's amazing. However, we need to acknowledge the bittersweet feelings here. With all that being said though, it's not all bad. In the name of keeping with the positive, there's so much good about this episode, and honestly, even Patrick. The departure of Season 1 Patrick and the arrival of the overly dumb Patrick opened the door for some truly hilarious and iconic moments. Like when SpongeBob is thinking to himself about how Gary and Patrick are gonna have a sleepover, and Patrick is just in the background going,
blah, 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 blah.
I will admit proudly that when they take the stupid Patrick and use him for clever and funny moments instead of just random stupid jokes or making him an oblivious jerk, it genuinely lands a lot better. On top of that, one of the greatest parts about Patrick is the way that they draw his facial expressions here. That few seconds where he's pulling Gary off of his chest and his brow goes all flat and his face turns super serious. It's moments like this one when Patrick really shines his brightest. It's like that moment in the last video in the series when he talks to SpongeBob about developing a taste for free-form jazz. Plus, genuinely outside of the facial expressions, there are some truly hilarious dumb moments, like when Patrick calls SpongeBob Dad Mom Angry Pants. Not only is the joke itself funny and it makes sense, but also the fact that Patrick himself says that he has no idea what that's even supposed to mean. Honestly, this is one of the moments that I truly feel like should be hailed as more iconic than it is. This absolutely feels like a meme-worthy moment, however, it's one of those that I never really hear referenced. In all reality too, Dad Mom Angry Pants is just kind of a legendary insult when used in the right context. With that being said, the fact that Patrick was such a jerk absolutely drove me nuts, but that doesn't negate the fact that there was still a very solid and funny back and forth vibe between him and SpongeBob. One of my favorite examples of this comes in the beginning of this episode. The way that SpongeBob and Patrick just started cracking up laughing when Gary was climbing all over him. These two literally just stand there non-stop laughing until nightfall, and I don't know what it is, but something about the innocence of this moment really captures the vibe of a classic Season 1 SpongeBob and Patrick, and that's an aspect of this one that I genuinely appreciate so much. We also have that absolutely hilarious moment where SpongeBob and Gary are playing tag in the beginning, and SpongeBob launches himself onto his house using his teeth to secure himself in place. Or the solid gold follow-up where he slides down the side of his pineapple and ends up with the twirly bits of skin stuck in his teeth. This right here, specifically the twirly nature of the pineapple skin, it just felt like that moment in the last video where SpongeBob is defiling that chocolate bar in the name of teasing Patrick as he scrapes his teeth on it, creating twirly bits of chocolate in his teeth. Like, those things are just scratching the surface, and that's why it makes it so hard to actively dislike any episode from these early seasons. I mean, even if you end up not liking this one, you can still go through it and point out moments that at least had some sort of value worth appreciating. For me, another huge one of those moments was the entire aspect of SpongeBob with his other pets that he tried out instead of Gary. I specifically get so much joy out of SpongeBob and the way he was repeatedly hitting Rex with the
"Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?"
Like, the face that they put on SpongeBob here, and the way that Tom Kenny delivers these lines is just way too funny. Plus, like, come on, Patrick's dance that he was doing while he had Gary on his head, it's just legendary. The comedic icing on the cake for this whole sequence, however, without a doubt, had to be the moment where SpongeBob is literally in the middle of talking about how loyal that Rex is, just for him to be actively in the middle of running away and getting on a bus to escape. I mean, on one hand, it's heartbreaking to see SpongeBob have such a terrible run of luck when it comes to pets, but the timing of the dog running away was just so gut-busting. On top of that as well, we absolutely can't skip over just how iconic of a character that Larry is. The angry, poop green snail with massive furrowed eyebrows and a meow that resembles Squidward when he was turned into a snail back in the days of season 1.
Meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow.
Meow, 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 meow.
Plus, like, the way Larry's immediate reaction to absolutely everything is just straight anger and hissing just kills me every time. Like, this character really is just the perfect representation of that asshole cat that each and every one of you has met at some point in your life. The cat that, like, you can just be simply walking by and ignoring it and still it'll reach out and, like, try to claw you just because it's an absolute jerk. Yeah, that's Larry right there. However, I think we all know that the true star of this episode is without a doubt Jerry. This little guy may be different from Gary and Larry, but that doesn't make him any less valid. We love Jerry around these parts. He is such a good boy. All in all though, this one is a bit of a tough episode for me to rate. As much as I love the iconic gags, a handful of legendary and hilarious gags doesn't by default make a good episode. And the story here, I don't know, just kinda pissed me off as much as it was heartbreaking. Patrick was just such a hypocritical jerk, and as sad as SpongeBob was, he was an absolute pushover letting Patrick get away with all this. Again, it was funny, but it walked kind of a weird line. I think at the end of the day, we're gonna go ahead and give this one a deserving 6.9 out of 10. It's not quite a 7, but like it's super close, and it's not all bad, but it really is a weak episode as far as season 2 is concerned, if I'm being truly honest about my opinions at least. But next up, we're looking into an episode that I truly love. This one really is such a great one, and when I think about season 2, this is without a doubt up there as one of my top 5 favorite episodes from this season. We're checking out none other than the episode No Free Rides. This episode starts out at Mrs. Puff's boating school, where we see SpongeBob taking yet another driving test. The narrator explains how if SpongeBob doesn't pass this time, that means a whole nother year of boating school, right before SpongeBob runs him over with the boat. As Mrs. Puff docks him 20 points for running over another pedestrian, she tells SpongeBob that the test is now over. Unfortunately for her though, SpongeBob doesn't really take no for an answer, as he throws the car into reverse, hoping he can make up the points that he missed. As you would expect though, he just causes a massive accident yet again.
Okay, Mrs. Puff, what's my final score?
6.
Woo! And how many do I need to pass?
6.
Ooh.
100.
What?
You need 600 to pass. You got 6.
SpongeBob begins to cry a bit as he tells Mrs. Puff not to worry about him, pointing out that on the bright side, he gets to be in her class for a whole nother year. He runs off, hopping onto his bike to ride home as she contemplates how she could possibly get out of another year stuck with him.
There's only one way out. A teacher's ace in the hole. Extra credit!
What was that, Mrs. Puff?
Extra credit, SpongeBob. The extra credit. I still have a chance. I mean, you still have a chance.
What's extra credit?
It's when you get credit for the things you weren't able to do before.
Back in the classroom, Mrs. Puff explains to SpongeBob that the one thing he needs to do to get enough extra credit to pass boating school is just write a 10-word sentence about what he learned in boating school. She even helps him by providing the first 7 words. However, SpongeBob just keeps struggling non-stop for the most random reasons, be it his pencil needing to be sharpened multiple times over, or his apprehension over letting Mrs. Puff see what he came up with.
What I learned in boating school is...
I can do this! I can do this! Is it hot in here, Mrs. Puff? Why is it so hot in here? Ah! My hand is cramping, Mrs. Puff! Make it stop!
You only need 3 more words!
Mrs. Puff stands right up and looks at SpongeBob's work, which is pretty much scribbles and drawings all over a ripped up piece of paper, and at that, she says it doesn't really matter because he passed anyway. SpongeBob says he feels like he didn't really do anything, but Mrs. Puff assures him that's how extra credit is supposed to feel.
Besides, here's your license.
My license. It tastes just like I dreamt it would. Mrs. Puff,
Thank you, SpongeBob. Congratulations. Have a nice life.
Look out, Bikini Bottom! There's a new driver on the road, and his name is SpongeBob SquarePants!
Mrs. Puff freaks out as she imagines SpongeBob on the road causing massive chaos and using people as speed bumps with zero regard. As the town catches fire, the news reports on it blaming her for being negligent in passing SpongeBob when he clearly wasn't ready. She tries her best to shake it off, saying that SpongeBob doesn't even have a boat yet. However, when she finds herself arriving at home to SpongeBob's parents throwing a thank you party for her, the worry becomes all the more real, especially when it's revealed that SpongeBob's parents bought him a brand new boatmobile for the occasion.
For me? Oh.
What have I done? Everyone will know that I let him slide through school. I'll have to move to a new city, start a new boating school with a new name. No, not again. I've got to end this thing before it begins.
Back at SpongeBob's house, his parents tuck him into bed, telling him no going near the boat. However, he instinctually defies that rule, delicately hovering out of bed and right outside to his new boat.
Hi, Bodie. Oh! Bodie, you're cold. Take my socks.
As SpongeBob cuddles his boat, we see Mrs. Puff off in the distance in a ski mask, making her way over to steal it. She hops on in and starts the boat, beginning to drive off, not noticing that SpongeBob is laying on the seat underneath her, sleeping. He wakes up thinking that he's driving. However, when he sees the boat jacker, he panics.
Who are you and what are you doing in my boat? And why are you wearing that ski mask? Because you're not skiing! Oh my gosh, I know who you are!
No, you don't! You don't know who I am!
Yes, I do! I know that you're a boat jacker! I never thought I'd have to use this pepper spray. Ah! Somebody help me!
Mrs. Puff kicks SpongeBob right out of the boat, and seconds later, he's already caught back up on his bicycle. He ends up hanging onto the boat for dear life as she floors it, sending him through a field of giant clams and a gathering of cheese graters. However, after that, things get a little too intense for SpongeBob to handle.
If you think I'll let go for a little educational television? Oh no! Ah!
Looks like that got rid of him. Now for some tunes.
And now back to KRUD with all of your personal "you won't get away with stealing my car" hits. Ah!
As SpongeBob jumps out of the radio, he attacks the boat jacker, sending the boat flying directly toward a cop car. As they go careening down below, SpongeBob ends up ripping the mask off, and he's completely shocked to see none other than Mrs. Puff underneath it. Just then though, they crash directly into the cop car, and next thing you know, we see Mrs. Puff in jail as she talks to SpongeBob through a pane of glass.
I'd like to apologize. I shouldn't have passed you. You really weren't ready.
So I guess I gotta give my license back, huh?
I hear Mrs. Flounder is starting a new class Monday morning.
You kidding? You're the only teacher for this student. And besides, the warden says she'll let you go early if you do her a favor.
What's that?
Free driving lessons! Ah!
For so many reasons, this episode is genuinely such a good one. It's an episode that I feel burned itself into my brain so deep that I've nearly memorized it beat for beat. The true beauty of this one is that it's not just the dialogue and the words that are so memorable. It's the whole sequence of events and the order that things progress and how out of control this one spins just so quickly. From the top of this episode to the bottom, it's just absolute gold for so many reasons. First of all, this one is just such a flawless progression of Mrs. Puff. Season 1, Mrs. Puff was an okay character for the most part. She was mostly afraid of SpongeBob and hated having to teach him. In Season 2, however, her sanity really started to unfurl and the layers peeled back just so rapidly. This episode kind of felt like the start of that process, and it's one that they approached in just such a perfect way. I mean, she's so unhinged that she literally just decided to let this guy pass based on bogus extra credit that he didn't even do. And like, at that point, why not just pass him without having to go through all these extra steps? Sure, I imagine that her thought process was making him do the extra credit so that she could have like a paper trail to show that he did do some work if she ever got investigated. But like, she didn't even have him properly do the work. It was a ripped up piece of paper with scribbles on it. She might as well have handed him his license as they were just sitting in the boat at the beginning of the episode and called it a day, because at the end of it all, the outcome probably would have been exactly the same. In all reality, that right there highlights the progression of her sanity and rationality falling apart due to the desperation of wanting SpongeBob out of her school for good. At first, she's thinking about a way that she could legitimately get SpongeBob through the course, which is where the extra credit comes into play. However, as she continues to deal with SpongeBob, her sanity just diminishes more and more, and she gets to the point of not even thinking it fully through anymore. She just wants him the hell out of her class. With that being said, it's also hilarious to consider that as far as her character goes, the entire point is that no matter what, SpongeBob just can never pass boating school, and his destiny is to be a student of hers forever. Like, even when it becomes as simple as just writing down a single sentence about what he learned, he can't even do that. In a way, it's almost like he refuses to pass. Like, he enjoys making Mrs. Puff's life miserable and getting to go here once a week to put her through hell. Knowing SpongeBob in the way that he is, it honestly wouldn't even really be surprising if this was never about getting his license anyway, and it was just like about getting out of the house and having something to do and clearly enjoying Mrs. Puff as a teacher and liking her class. I mean, that's clear as day, at least the enjoyment of her class part, in all of SpongeBob's interactions with Mrs. Puff. Sure, she's always freaking out and anxious around him, but he, on the other hand, is always bubbling with excitement and about to explode with joy most of the time that he talks to her. It's kind of astonishing, to be honest, especially when we consider that the entire basis of him being here week after week is rooted in failure. You'd think eventually SpongeBob would lose his drive and stop trying after years upon years of failing this class, but he's always like through the roof happy to be there. One huge moment that not only displayed that happiness, but also just kind of tickles my DNA, would be the moment in the beginning where SpongeBob's just overwhelmingly excited as he asks Mrs. Puff if he passed, while he's literally surrounded by rubble from a massive accident that he had just caused. That's like being in a baking competition, making your batter, dumping it on the floor, and flinging it all over the place while you roll in it, then proceeding to go up to the judges who are also covered in batter from you rolling in it, and unironically being like, "Did I win?" I mean, SpongeBob just kind of seems to have this insane ability to chug through life with the most astounding level of optimism, and in all seriousness, that's something that each and every one of us could use a bit of in a way. Seeing SpongeBob and the way that he tackles his failures is definitely a great example of that.
What's my final score?
6.
Woo! And how many do I need to pass?
6. 100.
This right here is what I'm talking about. This is the kind of energy that we love to see from SpongeBob. Sure, it may have been dumped on by Mrs. Puff a whole, second later, but still, that confident optimism, though it led to a bit of a letdown, is the fuel that keeps the fire burning inside of SpongeBob. It's what keeps him bubbly and SpongeBobby, for lack of a better word. On top of that, this episode was completely legendary for SpongeBob YouTube. This spawned multiple conspiracy theory videos, some of which got massive attention, laying out a very plausible argument for how Mrs. Puff could possibly be a career criminal, essentially living life on the run. And all of that came from that one minor, tiny line of dialogue where she talks about running away and starting a new life, just to follow it up by saying, "Not again," implying this wouldn't be the first time that she's had to do that. It's really mind-blowing to take in because, like we talked about earlier, SpongeBob has made some massive waves in society to the point where, for a lot of people, he's unavoidable. You can't even scroll through a comment section nearly anywhere without seeing a SpongeBob meme. However, clearly it's not just the silly memes, as serious videos like the Mrs. Puff conspiracy would become highly abundant online. The buzz that SpongeBob creates on the internet isn't just in the name of comedy, it gets more toward the serious side of things too. There's just something special about the iconic episodes of this show that end up making a bit of waves in online communities that adds a bit of extra spice to its iconic nature. And this episode is a prime example of that. Outside of how iconic this one is though, it's just loaded with so many legendary gags. Like SpongeBob floating out to his boat in the middle of the night and putting his socks on it because he says that it's cold. Or just the general fact that Mrs. Puff, the person that his family is literally having a party for, shows up to steal this boat to stop SpongeBob from driving. There's so many hilarious bits here, but honestly, I think my favorite personally had to have been all the random stuff that happened during the whole boat jacking sequence. Mrs. Puff sitting down and saying she hopes she remembers how to do this before pulling out a balloon and making a balloon animal. Or all the wild things that happened to SpongeBob as he was being dragged behind the boat. The clams, the cheese graters, and oh god, the educational television? Like, these are all perfect examples of how this show walked that line of random, stupid humor, but also, in a way, incredibly witty and sharp at the same time. It's gags like this where they walk that line so well that you have a hard time putting this particular gag into the box of dumb humor or well thought out joke, because it truly does fall somewhere in the middle. I also really appreciated the moment where SpongeBob ends up letting go of the car because of the educational television, just for him to turn into the car stereo 1 second later. There's something about his face and the way that they cleverly drew it to make his eyes the dials and everything. Like, the art here just feels so perfect. It's not too old feeling, but not too new and digital feeling. I don't know what it is, but something about SpongeBob being the radio brings that out so well. Another point in this episode that kind of invoked a similar feeling was that moment where Mrs. Puff gives SpongeBob his license. She hands it over and we get a close-up to see that this is, down to the last detail, the same exact license that we saw in the Season 1 episode, Sleepy Time. The fact that this specific asset from Season 1 fits in so perfectly with the moderately new-looking art style really doubles down on that point. Sure, a lot of people would look at reused assets as a little bit lazy, but in all reality, it not only makes for a good callback to Season 1, but also still slightly holding on to that Season 1 feel, even if just a bit. And of course, there's the continuity of it all. It also reminds me of that burger that I've brought up in the past. If you've watched this whole series of SpongeBob videos, which if you have, God, thank you so much, you're the absolute best, but you'll remember me pointing out this burger pretty early on in the series, noting that I remember seeing it in a Season 3 episode. Then, along the way of our journey here, I'll be damned if I can't remember exactly which video it was in, but I know for sure that we saw that same burger yet again in one of these episodes that I've covered. For me, there's just something about that consistency and noticing things that stay the same in these shows for a really long time as far as the art style goes, all the while the entire animation around that particular thing changes. For what it's worth though, I absolutely love all things about this episode. It's genuinely such a fantastic one, and I'm absolutely giving it a 10 because it truly feels like it's worthy of it. Along with that 10 though, comes a bit of a tough point. It's one that's personal though, I absolutely will admit. This isn't rooted in any provable logic, and it's not one that I can outline in timelines of production because it simply doesn't add up if you look at the dates of production. But this episode kind of feels like the last old school episode of SpongeBob to me. It's hard to explain, but obviously it didn't have that Season 1 animation and art style feel to it, but to be honest, it's just one that feels really different when compared to the next episode in the series. I can't quite put my finger on it, but the episode that came after this one, there's just something about it that feels like it was the moment where the old SpongeBob was officially done, and like we were entering the era of Season 3 territory, which I can't stress enough isn't bad. Season 3 was absolutely amazing for a long list of reasons. However, if we take Season 1 and compare it to Season 3, it's almost as if Season 2 becomes a bridge in a way. A bridge where the start of it feels a lot more like Season 1 and the end of it feels a lot more like Season 3. This next episode in particular kind of feels like the very first one that's kind of past the middle point and officially starting our ascent into the feeling of Season 3 territory. Next up, we're picking apart none other than the episode I'm Your Biggest Fanatic. This episode starts out with SpongeBob and Patrick exploring the biannual jellyfish convention. They check out all the new tech, displays, and presentations, all the while Patrick keeps pissing off a security guard by touching everything.
Look! Dr. Manowar, the guy who got stung by Big Lenny and lived.
And now it only hurts when you touch it.
Touch!
Do I have to follow you all day?
Just then, SpongeBob is completely starstruck when he sees none other than Bikini Bottom's premier jellyfishing enthusiast club, the Jelly Spotters. Particularly, however, he's absolutely enamored by their leader, Kevin the Sea Cucumber.
What's so great about a nerdy pickle?
If I could just touch the hem of his pocket protector, then maybe some of his greatness would rub off on me.
SpongeBob, as a friend, I must say that's really geeky. Oh my gosh! Jeffrey, jellyfish! Oh, wait, Jeffrey! I have to touch you!
Hey!
As a bunch of geeky-looking jellyfish enthusiasts write down every single word that falls out of Kevin's mouth, SpongeBob takes to the front and center of the stage. However, he ends up being so starstruck that all he can do is just stare in awe and repeatedly say hi to Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. I'm your biggest fan.
You're too kind.
Security! No, wait! I would do anything for you.
Why don't you go jump off a building? Huh?
Anything.
Punch yourself in the face. Doesn't that hurt you?
Do you want it to hurt me, Kevin?
As Kevin and his entourage break out into laughter, Kevin tells his friends that he wants to take SpongeBob out jellyfishing so they can see how many times he gets stung before he ends up running home crying like a baby. He invites SpongeBob to join them, and next thing you know, we see him carrying Kevin and his friends on his back as they ride on him.
Here we are. Jellyfish Fields. Oh.
I hope you didn't forget our nets.
I didn't forget them, Kevin. They're in the trunk. I can't believe I'm out here with the Jelly Spotters. I mean, all my life I wanted to be a Jelly Spotter, and now I'm out here with you guys with the nets and the jars and the jellyfish, and I'm with Kevin, and Kevin's with me, and we're all with each other, and we're jellyfishing together, and it's fun, and I love it.
Kevin tells SpongeBob that before he can join their club, he needs to catch some jellyfish. However, when 20 jellyfish just kind of help themselves into SpongeBob's net, making his win flawlessly easy, Kevin ends up getting mad and kicking the net, causing himself to get stung. After that, he decides to tell SpongeBob that if he wants to be a real member of the Jelly Spotters, he needs to let jellyfish lick jelly off of his face.
How does it feel?
Ah! It tickles my nose.
Not for long.
Wah, wah, wah.
Will you cut that out?
Time goes on and we see SpongeBob conquer task after task, leaving Kevin angry and stung over and over until he's just a big, massive pink wound. At that, feeling fed up, he decides that he's gonna make SpongeBob do one final task that'll show him once and for all. They tell him that they're gonna catch a queen jellyfish. They hoist SpongeBob up between two poles, tying him up to use him as bait.
I've never been bait before. I don't think I've ever seen a queen jellyfish either.
Well, then you've probably never used a queen jellyfish call.
Loser, loser.
Hey, I've heard this call before.
I'll bet you have.
Hey, where are you going?
We'll be right behind this bush. Who's got my sting ointment?
The hours pass, and SpongeBob keeps blowing the queen jellyfish call over and over again. However, it doesn't seem to be getting him anywhere. Eventually, though, when SpongeBob decides that it's time to give up, he's shocked to see a massive queen jellyfish appear right before him.
Hey, Kevin, she's here. Look, she's here. She's here, Kevin.
SpongeBob runs his way to a massive cliff where he begs the queen jellyfish to let him go. However, as he bursts into tears, he's shocked to see the front of the massive queen pop open, and inside is none other than Kevin and his loser friends. SpongeBob asks him what's going on and about his final test. However, Kevin just kind of laughs in his face, revealing that they were never going to let SpongeBob join their group and that they just came here to make fun of him.
I was your biggest fan.
So were they.
Hey, look, everybody! Kevin's back! Kevin! We love you, Kevin! Kevin, please!
You look so dumb with your dorky jellyfish call. Loser!
Loser! I am not a loser.
Just then, as SpongeBob stands there embarrassed, a real jellyfish king appears and falls in love with Kevin's queen jellyfish. At that, they end up flying away for dear life with the king in hot pursuit. However, when they crash into one of Kevin's ointment billboards and break the queen jellyfish costume, the king gets violently angry. As SpongeBob and the Jelly Spotters hide in fear for their lives, everybody tells Kevin to save them. However, Kevin says that he was just into jellyfishing for the fashion, and he doesn't even know what he's doing. He full-blown breaks down, starts crying for his mommy, and saying that he wants his blankie. At that, SpongeBob, clearly being the only true jellyfisher here, storms outside. He confronts the Jellyfish King and pulls out a bottle of bubbles, proceeding to blow a massive slice of pie that the king takes happily as he flies away. Just like that, Kevin and his friends run out of the cave to talk to SpongeBob.
How did you know?
Ah, everybody loves pie.
Wah, wah, wah.
Well, SquarePants, that was impressive, but you're still not in the club because you didn't catch a queen jellyfish. Wait, what are you doing? Ah!
Wow, I didn't know this was a hat.
It wasn't.
Next thing you know, we cut right back to the convention, which is still going on all this time later, as SpongeBob finds Patrick. He asks about the club that SpongeBob was trying to join, but SpongeBob says that he ended up turning down their invitation.
SpongeBob, I'm glad you learned your lesson. Hero worship is unhealthy. Come on, Jeffrey.
Okay, right out the gate, I want to preface all of this by saying that this is an excellent episode. It's not perfect, but it's up there with the greats as an iconic and quality episode of SpongeBob. If I'm truly being honest, I don't know what it is about this one that makes it feel so different to me, even just from the episode before it. It feels so weird for me to make a claim like that without really having any solid evidence to back it up, but honestly, I just kind of don't know. There's a chance that it could be due to how they introduced Kevin and his role in this episode, considering how much of season 1 was spent mainly establishing our core characters and putting them into different scenarios. I mean, season 2 has done the same thing up to this point, continuing the episodes as they explore our core characters. But as the series went on, it felt like there was a lot more shoehorning in random one-off characters because they kind of ran out of ideas to play out with the main core characters. I don't know though, it feels hard to claim that considering that we've seen introductions to random characters like Bubble Buddy or Bubble Bass that didn't really feel the same way, so it's hard to pinpoint if that really is it. In all reality, maybe it's just a me issue, who knows? But in my personal experience as an avid fan of SpongeBob, this was the episode that I saw as a kid where I really stopped for a moment and kind of realized just how different this one feels from the original episodes of the series overall. It's weird too because if you look at the intro to the episode, specifically this wide shot of the inside of the convention, the background and surroundings really do feel like that rustic OG SpongeBob art a bit. The poles, the beams, and the pictures and everything. I think it might just be the characters that feel like they really got a change in how they were drawn. Like, even the background fish look like really modern character art on top of rustic, older style backgrounds. I gotta say though, as different as it feels, I kind of like the artistic clash in the moments that do capture this kind of feeling. All in all though, the original art style on top of these kinds of backgrounds was leagues better in my opinion. Hand-drawn art on animation cells will do that though, of course. Art style aside though, again, this one was still hilarious and a great episode. Just because it felt like the first episode that was a true massive departure from the OG days for me doesn't make it any less of an enjoyable episode. It's one that I just take in a little bit differently. I'll circle back to that in a bit, but before I do, there's a few really important things that we need to cover. Specifically, all of the hilarious and amazing parts of this episode. First things first, I feel like Patrick really played a low-key underrated role here. I absolutely loved his bit in the beginning where he was going around touching everything, including Dr. Manowar's wound, or his victim, favorite mascot, Jeffrey the Jellyfish. Possibly the most hilarious part of Patrick's role here though, was that security guard that was following him around. This dude was just hilariously fed up and his mannerisms reflected it in the best way. On top of that though, I really loved Patrick's role in the ending. Talking about how proud he is of SpongeBob for getting over his unhealthy hero worship, while he himself is straight up dragging a tied up Jeffrey the Jellyfish in a wagon, not a single security guard in sight to save him. It's one of those where the hilarity comes not only in Patrick's ironic sentiment, but also, like, leaving you wondering what the hell he got up to while SpongeBob was gone that led to the security guard mysteriously disappearing, and the guy dressed up as Jeffrey the Jellyfish being Patrick's souvenir to take home from the convention. Outside of Patrick though, we have to talk about Kevin in general. This dude is just the embodiment of a pretentious loser, and it's kind of hilarious how he thinks he's literally the greatest thing since sliced bread. He thinks he's so cool because he has a whole horde of nerds longing to touch the hem of his pocket protector. I gotta say though, making him a sea cucumber is just so weirdly funny. Like, his design, the weird crown thing, it's just golden character design on behalf of the artists that worked on this show. On top of that, Patrick calling Kevin a nerdy pickle just makes me cry laughing every time. Or the fact that Kevin has his own brand of ointment that he endorses. Like, this cucumber rubs ointment on himself. I don't know what it is about the word ointment, but it's just weird too. This bottle that says Kevin's ointment and him standing behind it with that weird smile and look on his face is just something else. I haven't seen this episode in a really long time, and I honestly forgot just how funny that this one is. I mean, come on, that moment when SpongeBob punches himself in the face and Kevin questions if it hurts him, to which SpongeBob pulls out a metal spiked glove, asking Kevin if he wants it to hurt him. Like, the way that SpongeBob is willing to jump through any hoop to please Kevin, even if it means destroying himself, is just so obnoxious. Of all people for SpongeBob to worship too, it's the cucumber with a pocket protector who rubs ointment on himself. Speaking of SpongeBob though, we can't ignore that moment where they get to Jellyfish Fields and we full-blown see SpongeBob's ass. It's kind of weird that it's round, to be honest, because every time we see SpongeBob with no pants on, it's always been square back there. It's just kind of unsettling visually to see SpongeBob with round cheeks. It just kind of feels unnatural, considering he's a square. It's like in the Halloween special when SpongeBob gets his head shaved down round by Patrick. Of all the SpongeBob moments in this episode though, this one right here might have possibly been my all-time favorite.
I can't believe I'm out here with the jelly spotters. I mean, all my life I wanted to be a jelly spotter, and now I'm out here with you guys with the nets and the jars and the jellyfish, and I'm with Kevin, and Kevin's with me, and we're all with each other, and we're jellyfishing together, and it's fun, and I love it!
Like, the way SpongeBob just randomly explodes with his excitement that he just can't contain, non-stop word vomiting about how happy he is, it just gets me every time. With all of that being said though, I definitely want to point out that, like, outside of character design, Kevin the Sea Cucumber totally sucks. He's one of my most hated characters of Season 2, and I'm honestly happy that he didn't make a return. At least, not that I know of. He was okay for this episode, but other than that, he belongs in the ointment bin. Like, he's a complete trash person. On that note, can we talk about how messed up it is that Kevin has done this same exact prank to so many people that there's a full-blown cavern in Jellyfish Fields full of his victims? It's almost like something out of a horror story, considering that he keeps doing this over and over again to people that admire him. It feels like something that you'd see in some, like, super high art A24 horror film that's meant to, like, make you really think about life and stuff. On top of that, did anyone else notice how the king jellyfish referred to Kevin by his name? Like, how does he know Kevin? Is it Kevin's reputation from catching the jellyfish? Or is it just because he's such a douche and they all hate him? Well, I guess Kevin never really caught any jellyfish, so probably the latter. Furthermore, I just really have to bring this up. It's been established that Kevin and the Jelly Spotters are Bikini Bottom's premier jellyfishing enthusiast group, right? They've been to Jellyfish Fields before on multiple occasions. Kevin confirms this verbally, and we also see proof in all of the people that he trapped in that massive pit. With that in mind though, how has SpongeBob not met him and ran into him before? SpongeBob is literally here jellyfishing all the time. I mean, obviously he's a one-off character, so it's kind of irrelevant, but on a broader spectrum of anything, I'd say it could be because Kevin, again, isn't ever really there jellyfishing. Of course, we saw that when he admitted that he's just into it for the quote-unquote fashion and that he has no clue what he's doing. I mean, it makes sense as we literally haven't seen him catch a single jellyfish this entire episode. It actually explains a lot too. In all reality, it seems like Kevin just has an affinity for messing with people that he brings here and garnered his reputation by being a cunning, slick-tongued jerk. Even then though, this entire episode goes so much further than just Kevin. There really is a lot to love about this one all in all. It proves to be a good episode, all things considered. With that in mind, I think I feel pretty comfortable giving this one a 7.8 out of 10. It's not perfect, of course, but it is above average in a lot of ways. As far as Kevin and jellyfishing in general goes though, I'm about to get into a bit of a weird theory, but just hear me out for the fun of it. I'm wondering if maybe I'm onto something, or more likely this is total nonsense. Since the start of this show, jellyfishing has been SpongeBob's favorite pastime. That and karate. However, jellyfishing is almost always seen as childish in this show for some reason. I'm pretty sure we only ever see SpongeBob and Patrick jellyfishing for the most part. Sandy never partakes, Squidward is outwardly vocal about how dumb that he thinks it is, despite having been the person that invented it, and Mr. Krabs only ever uses jellyfish for profit. On top of the show establishing that it seems to be kind of a childish activity, when it comes to this convention, they really doubled down on how nerdy that a lot of people who jellyfish are. This is evidenced not only by SpongeBob and Patrick, but also Kevin, his entourage, and on top of that, that whole group of geeky looking fish who were front and center stage, writing down every single word that Kevin said. Just hoping that riding in the vicinity of his pocket protector will grace them with some of his pristine jellyfishing prowess that he pretends to have. All of these things in general have me wondering if this is just kind of a reflection of SpongeBob and his geeky nature into the sport on the show's behalf, or if it goes a little bit deeper than just making SpongeBob and people like him seem geeky. Like, what if Steven Hillenburg, being a marine biologist, hated fishing? What if he wanted to clown on fishermen a bit, so he decided to make SpongeBob really into the underwater equivalent of fishing and make him not only nerdy about it, but also the others that are into it as well? Sort of as a way of mocking. I mean, I'll admit that's a massive stretch, and it actually can be proven that it isn't true, but regardless, it's still an interesting angle to consider, especially as it pertains to this specific episode. Not only this one, but also the entire Hooks episode from season 1, and it being based around how traumatizing that fishing likely is from a fish's perspective. Oddly enough, a lot of aspects from this show seem to paint a kind of laughable picture of fishing or sports parodying fishing. However, the truth is, Steven Hillenburg apparently came up with the idea for this show when he was actually on a fishing trip to Baja in 1994, allegedly. So, without a doubt, he was probably okay with fishing, and I'm just doing the classic YouTuber reads too far into things trope. Putting the conspiracy shovel down and moving on though, circling back to how this one just felt so different from the original season 1 episodes and the episodes of season 2 that came before it, it's interesting to look at the release timelines of these episodes, at least as it pertains to how different they each feel. Because, oddly enough, there's a difference between packaging order for DVD release and for streaming services like Paramount Plus, and original broadcast order. For example, this episode and the one that we checked out before it, No Free Rides, were packaged together and aired on Nickelodeon on April 14th, 2001. However, the episode we saw before these, Dumped, aired on May 11th, 2001, after both of these episodes aired on TV. Yet, when put on DVD and streaming, they changed up the order for some reason. And if you think that's weird, that's just the start and one minor example. Most of the season 2 episodes aired in the year 2001, but there's one we're gonna see a few videos from now that actually aired all the way in 2003. Yet, it's still part of season 2 and got packaged in the middle of a bunch of episodes that aired in 2001. Plus, there's actually a few randomly inserted episodes from the year 2000 that we checked out a few videos ago. Something Smells and Bossy Boots. It's really weird too because we have the order that these episodes aired on Nickelodeon back in the day, which messes with our perception of how we think these episodes should be ordered due to the fact that that's how we saw them air as kids. Then of course there's the order that they ended up packaging them for the DVD release, which just feels like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Then we have the actual production order of which they made these episodes, none of which line up with one another whatsoever. The order that they were made, the order that they aired, and the order that they appear in re-releases are completely different from one another. In all honesty, I feel like that adds pretty substantially to how all over the place this season kind of feels. Like, sure, season 1 was the only one that actually used traditional cell animation, but when we get episodes that aired in the year 2000, the same year as season 1 randomly inserted in the middle of season 2, I don't know. It's kinda hard to put into words. It almost feels like old season 1 SpongeBob still. That's why I'm hoping to let the next episode do the talking as far as that point goes. This episode is one that I previously put off covering in the last video due to the timing, but right now, not only does the timing work pretty well due to the time of year, but it also proves a very big point. Just how different that the earlier episodes in this season felt. Because this next episode, which was repackaged into the middle of season 2, is actually another one that aired really early in the season, at the end of the year 2000. It's an absolutely iconic episode that, in my opinion, really captures the feel of the end of season 1, and fully represents what I'm talking about as far as the difference between early season 2 and the later episodes in season 2. Next up, we're checking out none other than the SpongeBob Christmas special, Christmas Who. Now, this episode is one of the most iconic episodes of all time. This right here, oh man, this episode defined my childhood Christmas experience. I have so many glorious memories of setting up the Christmas tree with my family, decorating, and in the nights leading up to Christmas, I'd set up a blanket on the ground in the living room, sleeping by the light of the tree as I watched this Christmas special on DVD. This one was a constant in the rotation of my favorite Christmas specials, and it's one that truly feels like an extension of the first season. On top of that though, this episode would be the first one that they completely changed the intro song for, having it match the cheery, festive theme of this episode.
Ready for Christmas, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh!
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? SpongeBob SquarePants.
On top of that, this would be the one that would introduce one of the most legendary and iconic staples in the entire SpongeBob universe. The president of the SpongeBob SquarePants fan club, Patchy the Pirate, played by none other than the voice of SpongeBob himself, Tom Kenny.
Hi, I'm Patchy the Pirate, president of the SpongeBob SquarePants fan club. Hey, that's better.
Squawk! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
That's right, Potty. It is Christmas. And there ain't nothing better in the 7 seas than a Bikini Bottom Christmas.
Patchy tells us all about how great of a time that both SpongeBob and Patrick have as they prepare for the arrival of Santa Claus, as he himself prepares some cookie dough to munch on. As he does his kitchen work though, all of a sudden we hear the chime of 3 bells. And of course, we all know what the chime of 3 bells means.
It's time to open fan letters! Oh,
here we go.
Thank you, Potty. Yeah, okay, Potty, thank you. Come on, give it your bird brain! Quiet, infernal bird! This letter comes to us from...
Name and address withheld.
Patchy swaps out his eye patch for his pirate readers as he dives into the letter from a 10-year-old SpongeBob fan who's wondering if SpongeBob loves Christmas as much as he does. At that, Patchy gets to explaining how Christmas actually hasn't always been celebrated by the residents of Bikini Bottom. As a matter of fact, not that long ago, no one in Bikini Bottom had actually ever even heard of Christmas.
Hey! Who wants to hear the story of SpongeBob's very first Christmas?
Squawk!
Potty! They loan me cookie dough!
Squouch!
Oh well, on with the show!
As this legendary episode starts out, we see SpongeBob dressed in his karate gear, looking down on Sandy's house from the ridge, not too far off, talking about his plan to sneak attack her with a special move. He approaches her house, but when he looks through the glass, he's shocked to witness Sandy lighting up her tree.
Fire! Don't worry, Sandy! I'm coming!
SpongeBob bursts through the door of the tree dome, hurling the bucket of water all over Sandy, only to be more confused when he realizes that there isn't actually an active fire burning. Sandy scoffs at him, wondering why he's being so crazy.
Ain't you never seen a Christmas tree before?
Christmas who?
What? Y'all never heard of Christmas?
Is she a friend from Texas?
No! I can't believe y'all haven't heard about Christmas.
Tell me more about this Christmas.
As SpongeBob sits there with wide eyes completely sucked into Sandy's story, she tells him all about the decorations, elves, reindeer, and even the man himself, Santa Claus. And at that, completely hyped about the idea of this holiday, SpongeBob goes to the Krusty Krab to spread the word. He tells everyone about the traditions and how you can write a letter to Santa to get free presents from him. Naturally, Mr. Krabs is immediately sold, seeing a letter to Santa as a blank check, and as SpongeBob gives him a piece of paper and a pencil, he gets started. Meanwhile, Patrick, thinking Santa is basically a genie, is also very excited to get his wishes into Santa.
Here you go, Patrick.
There's no words on this paper.
Not yet.
Yippee! A writing stick!
Squidward, on the other hand, finds all of this stupid and hard to believe. He's adamant that no one's gonna give him a present just because he wrote them a letter, and at that, he refuses to participate. Oddly, and kind of out of character, SpongeBob just lets him get away with that and doesn't push any further, as we see him then move on to writing his own letter to Santa.
Dear Santa, what do I want for Christmas, you may ask? All I want is for you to visit the gentle folk here in Bikini Bottom. That is my wish.
We cut to outside of the Krusty Krab, where SpongeBob shows Patrick this device that he invented to shoot bottles up to the surface for Santa. He tests it out by shooting up his letter first, overjoyed to see that it worked perfectly. Next up is Mr. Krabs.
My demands, letter is ready to go.
Great, Mr. Krabs. What did you wish for?
A pony
Really?
with saddlebags full of money!
SpongeBob sends up Patrick's letter, followed by every single person in Bikini Bottom. By the end of it, the surface is littered with bottles and everybody's had their letters sent off to Santa. That is, except for Squidward. He walks right through the crowd and straight up to SpongeBob, who's happy that he showed up in time.
What's your wish?
My wish is that the people of Bikini Bottom will stop paying any attention to the inane dribble that is constantly streaming out of this dunderhead's mouth.
Gee, Squidward, maybe Santa will bring me a dictionary so I can understand what you just said.
As Squidward just storms off angrily, SpongeBob tells everybody that they have a ton of decorating to do before Santa shows up. Just like that, we cut right into a montage of one of the most iconic holiday songs ever made, while SpongeBob and all of his friends in town decorate for Christmas, much to Squidward's dismay. As the song comes to a close, SpongeBob ends up having to send one last letter for a resident of Bikini Bottom when he realizes that Squidward still hasn't written his letter. Finally deciding that he isn't gonna let Squidward off the hook, he runs right into his house, interrupting Squidward's clarinet playing and starting to write his letter for him. At that, Squidward starts to get angry, throwing SpongeBob out of his house, insisting that he isn't going to participate.
But Squidward, when Santa comes, you'll be the only one without a gift.
SpongeBob, how many times do I have to say it? I don't believe in Santa Claus!
Come on, Squid. All you have to do is write a letter. What have you got to lose?
My self-respect, my sanity, my lunch.
Squidward just slams the door as SpongeBob and the rest of the townspeople beg him to come around and join in on the fun. Sadly though, he just shouts out his window at them, saying that SpongeBob is lying and that he has them all fooled. They disregard his Scrooge-like attitude, thankfully deciding to have a nice night and celebrate with SpongeBob, waiting for Santa to arrive. However, after singing all night and waiting for him to show up, they're all left really upset when Santa isn't there by morning.
Hey, where's Santa?
He should be here any minute. Santa's coming tonight. Santa's coming tonight.
Thanks for the lies, Mr. Fairy Tale. Let's go waste our time somewhere else.
SpongeBob and Patrick try their best not to lose hope, but as the day goes on, that gets harder and harder for them to do, considering there isn't a single sign of Santa anywhere. Patrick ends up giving up, walking away defeated, and as SpongeBob stands there alone, Squidward ends up bursting out of his house with a megaphone, singing about Christmas like an absolute pretentious dick.
Merry Christmas! Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas! Wait! Oh, I see a great Christmas photo. Can you move in a little? Say Santa Claus.
Santa Claus.
Aw, our first Christmas.
As Squidward continues to make an absolute ass of himself, SpongeBob admits that he was right, bursting into tears and saying that Christmas is stupid. However, despite this, he still wants Squidward to have this present.
I made it for you so you wouldn't feel left out when Santa came.
Oh, gee, you know, I
You're welcome.
SpongeBob? He made me a present?
Squidward opens up the box to find a beautiful hand-carved driftwood clarinet engraved with his name on it. He clicks a button on it to hear a little Christmas song as these little Squidwards pop out of the holes on it, and immediately he's just taken back by this kind gesture, feeling like a huge ass because it's literally the best gift that he has ever been given. He looks over to see SpongeBob in a massive depressed funk, dragging the decorations off of his pineapple, and he realizes that there is really only one thing that he can do to make this right. He puts on a Santa costume and does his best Santa laugh, standing on top of his house to get SpongeBob's attention, until he accidentally falls, tumbling down the side of his Easter Island head.
You're
Hey, kids, take it easy. SpongeBob! 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 Don't do that again.
SpongeBob hops up and gives Squid Santa Word a big old hug, questioning for just a brief moment his lack of sleigh, reindeer, and big jolly belly. Ultimately though, he's just happy that Santa gave him the one and only present that he wanted, bringing Christmas to the people of Bikini Bottom.
I didn't bring Christmas to Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob. You did.
I did? Oh.
Merry Christmas, SpongeBob!
With that out of the way, Squidward lets out a huge sigh of relief, ready to go on with his day. However, when a little girl shows up asking if he has a present for her, and SpongeBob reassures her that he does, Squidward ends up knee-deep in some muddy water. He runs into his house, looking around for something that a little girl might like, deciding to give her a wrench.
Here you go, little girl. Ho, ho, ho!
Thanks, Santa.
That almost felt good.
Squidward has to run into his house and think on his feet, handing out presents one by one to each of the townspeople. By the end of it all, he ends up with all of the citizens in Bikini Bottom happy, but unfortunately, he gave away every last one of his belongings just to make SpongeBob happy.
You might as well take the door. That's all that's left.
Squidward, you missed him. He was here, just like I said. He gave us all presents. He was jolly and he had a beard. His nose was big and he had rosy cheeks. He was friendly and kind and Santa-ish. Oh, his belly was small, but his nose was huge with Christmas joy. He was so nice.
Well, at least it's over.
Squidward looks at the ground, surprised to see a message in a bottle waiting at his feet. He opens it up, surprised to see a letter from Santa, thanking him for all of his help and for being a good boy this year. As he stands there in disbelief, the letter magically disappears and he sees none other than Santa himself flying above, laughing and waving at him.
Oh!
Yep, I'm insane.
At that, we cut right back to Patchy the pirate, who's got a little model ship that he's using to play with his handmade SpongeBob and Patrick figures. He takes the time to wish us all a happy holidays, hoping that we enjoyed the story as much as he did, as he stands underneath the mistletoe.
Time for somebody to kiss Patchy the pirate. Come on, who's it gonna be? Come on, kiss the captain.
Give us a kiss.
No, not you, Potty. No, get out of here. No, Potty, I don't want to kiss you. No, we've talked about this. Potty, no.
Well, it looks like Patchy's pretty busy at the moment, so I'll say it for him. Good night and happy holidays.
Oh man, I've said it once and I will say it again. This one is an absolutely perfect Christmas episode. From top to bottom, it's just pure excellence. Its perfection is rooted not only in the Christmas theme, decor, and the story, but also because at its core, this one intentionally evokes a lot of really strong emotions. I mean, SpongeBob's big, hopeful eyes, his heartfelt letter to Santa, Squidward's sacrifice to make SpongeBob happy, which of course meant making the entire population of Bikini Bottom happy. I mean, this one isn't just a Christmas special. It's not just another amazing episode of SpongeBob. All things considered, this one is a well thought out and perfectly crafted story that's intention is to invoke the warm holiday feelings in all of us. And honestly, it did that flawlessly. This one gave warm and cozy feelings all throughout, even when things weren't looking too bright. on top of the emotions this one made us feel, it was just loaded with so many iconic moments that would absolutely stand the test of time and hold up so well. Furthermore, wouldn't you agree this one feels at least a little bit closer to season 1 than the episode with Kevin the Sea Cucumber? Again, my intention was to let this episode speak for itself in that regard, so I don't want to dwell on it for too long, but this one absolutely feels like it was an episode from 2000, closer to season 1 than the last one did, without a doubt. Even though it was the same animation as the rest of season 2, it still felt like it was early on in that transition. One aspect of this episode right out the gate that by default makes this one such an amazing and iconic episode is the fact that this is the very first appearance of everybody's favorite pirate and president of the SpongeBob fan club, Patchy the Pirate. I know I already pointed that out earlier, but the thing is, it's a big deal. After this appearance, he would become synonymous with SpongeBob specials. He was the kind of character that wasn't ever really overused, and anytime they brought him out, you knew the episode you were about to see was usually a special treat, not just another everyday episode. Keyword, usually. It also feels so symbolic that Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob himself of all people, plays the live-action pirate who is SpongeBob's biggest fan. On one hand, it's kind of a funny fourth wall break, as if he's his own biggest fan. But on the other hand, looking at this show being almost 30 years old now, and how Tom Kenny has spoken over the years about his passion behind playing this character, it's kinda like how Mel Blanc did the voices of all the Looney Tunes characters for so many decades of his life. It's a legacy that started with a passion, a love for the game, and somebody who genuinely believed in the product that they were a part of. Tom Kenny as the voice of SpongeBob is the definition of that sentiment without a doubt. With that in mind, yeah, him as Patchy just feels like such a special role for him to step into. Aside from this being Patchy's intro though, there were so many other amazing aspects of this episode. Early on, however, one particular thing caught my eye that had me reflecting on just how clever that this show is, and works as a representation of how amazingly cartoonish that it approached underwater physics and science. That would be the moment where Sandy plugs in her Christmas lights and SpongeBob freaks out, thinking that it's a fire. So he grabs a bucket and just kind of swings it around him to get some water into it. Like, first of all, just the simple fact that SpongeBob is a fish that knows what fire is just kind of baffling. The fact that fire has existed underwater previously and we've seen it and even had the characters acknowledge it is just so odd. I appreciate it though, because it's one of those pure cartoon logic moments that can't be explained easily. It reminds me of that episode in the last video when SpongeBob and Patrick were on the run and Patrick points it out, and right when he does, the fire goes out. And right when he does, the fire goes out. On top of that too, a lot of people, myself included, have questioned things like the existence of the Goo Lagoon, for example, and how a beach can exist underwater. However, once you learn about the formation of brine pools, it makes sense. It has a scientific explanation, and that level of reality bearing on the joke makes it land differently. Especially when compared to gags like fire existing underwater, which are just pure cartoon madness. Continuing on with the portion that took place in Sandy's tree dome, however, I really just love how quotable that the whole Christmas gag is. I mean, SpongeBob quoting it back to her in the same tone was just so funny and on point. And at this point, it's become a yearly staple in my house anytime the topic of Christmas comes up in conversation. You always gotta hit him with a Christmas! From here though, the moment things transitioned over to the Krusty Krab, there was one big moment where I had a bit of a realization. It happened when SpongeBob hands Patrick a piece of paper and a pencil, and he's all,
Yippee! A writing stick!
Now, this, on top of just being blatantly hilarious, is just such a specific energy that I feel like completely rubbed off on all of us as kids who watched this. We all saw Patrick calling the pencil a writing stick, and I feel like it changed us forever. It almost gives the same kind of energy as the people in the mid to late 2000s who started calling their old school flip phone a cellular device for the joke of it. The same people who started using the term interwebs to refer to the internet. Now, that's absolutely not to drag you if you are one of those people. However, seeing this episode, I'm inclined to believe that Patrick might have just been the pioneer of that kind of comedy for a lot of us. He obviously wasn't the first to do that kind of humor, but there were a lot of us as kids who, for us, this was our first exposure to that kind of random comedy. This was our first exposure to this specific flavor of random comedy. It's the same kind of comedic energy that rubbed off on the people that became adults who would later go on to coin the term crotch goblin in reference to someone's unruly kid. And honestly, that right there really feels like an evolution of this kind of comedy in just the most perfect way. Even that circles back to the idea that SpongeBob is inescapable. Like, even if you didn't watch it, don't see the memes online, and don't watch YouTube enough to scroll past the SpongeBob videos, odds are you've interacted with someone in your lifetime whose comedic identity was shaped by watching SpongeBob. Which would mean, by proxy, your life has been in some way affected by SpongeBob. Continuing along, possibly my favorite part of this episode would have to be the montage with that Christmas song. It's just so remarkably perfect. It's memorable, it's catchy, it's festive, it's everything we needed out of a SpongeBob Christmas song. On top of the song being so iconic, the sequence of events happening on screen are 100% perfect and so fitting to the vibe of this show. From the montage of SpongeBob dancing in front of the Christmas backgrounds, the moment with Plankton and Mr. Krabs exchanging fruitcake, and even Squidward angrily throwing garbage on SpongeBob and Patrick for decorating his house, this montage absolutely hit a bullseye in capturing the perfect balance of holiday joy meets SpongeBob. It honestly might be the greatest Christmas montage in cartoon history, which is a bold claim, albeit one that might be true. I gotta say though, one thing that stuck out to me about this montage was the involvement of Plankton. Not in a bad way at all, but one that kind of tends to just reaffirm how abrasive and opposed to joy that Squidward is. It says a lot that even Plankton of all people was able to get past his anger and hatred for Mr. Krabs and the people of Bikini Bottom to come together with them for Christmas. Meanwhile, Squidward refuses to. Like, Plankton is a full-blown villain who has been bullied and thrown out by the entire town before. He's tried to take over the world, and even then, he's still invited and welcomed to the gathering, choosing on his own volition to participate. Squidward is offered the same exact welcome invitation, but his eternal grumpy gills attitude trumps all else, and he's just this closed-off, grinchy recluse for most of the episode. With that being said, we have to admit, it makes the moment where he receives that gift from SpongeBob, being literally the only person in town who got a present when he didn't even believe or want it, hit so much harder. It makes the guilt that he feels really land in such a way that it shows us as viewers that Squidward truly does have a conscience. He really does care despite trying his best to prove otherwise, and oddly enough, as overlooked as it is, that might be the crux of this episode, showing that even the angriest, grinchiest of Scrooge can have at least a gram of caring inside of them, even if you have to dig deep for it and force it out. If Squidward didn't, he wouldn't have felt bad and literally given his entire life away to make SpongeBob happy. I mean, he jumped through so many hoops, and it wasn't even about the townspeople really. It was purely about making SpongeBob's wish come true. In a way, it's like an extra hard slap in the face to Squidward, having to give away all of his belongings. But it just goes to show that deep down inside, he really does have some care for SpongeBob. Speaking of SpongeBob though, I honestly really appreciated the way that they approached his defeat and sadness here. Of course, it didn't last that long, only going on as long as it necessarily had to, but also they went out of their way to make it not all too heartbreaking for the viewer. It was sprinkled with scoff-worthy moments at Squidward's audacity as well as funny minor bits. For example, the way he decided to take down his decorations was definitely worthy of a chuckle at minimum.
I guess I won't be needing this. Oh, that's better.
The thing is, as far as this episode goes, there is a lot of important life lessons here. SpongeBob's gesture of making Squidward that clarinet by hand, Squidward realizing that he was such a jerk to SpongeBob when all he did was try to spread some joy. Us as viewers realizing that Squidward ended up having to make such a huge personal sacrifice because of how careless that he was with his actions towards someone who had nothing but pure intentions. Noting that his conscience wouldn't have let him live this down. This one truly is a profound episode on all levels, but especially when you look past the surface level joy that it brings. But truly the most amazing part is that you don't even have to do that. You can take this one in for just a simple, straightforward Christmas special on its face, and it's honestly just perfect. For me, that's one of the biggest deciding factors for the SpongeBob specials. Not only having themes and art that matches the overall season that the special represents, but on top of that, bringing an extra compelling story to the table, making episodes like this ones to remember without a doubt. With all of that being said, I think it comes as no surprise that this episode gets a 10 out of 10. It's perfect. It's my favorite Christmas special, and it's one that completely changed my childhood and my holiday season every year from the moment that it came out. With all of that being said though, my friends, I truly am excited for where the next portion of this adventure is going to take us. The next video in this series is one that's going to cover some of the literal best episodes in this season. We've got some truly special episodes to cover in the next video, and if you're excited for it, drop a like. If you can get this video to, let's call it 1,000 likes, I'll rush into the next part stupid quickly. The choice is yours, my friends. But what do you guys think? Are you stoked for what's to come next on this journey? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. Of course, it's with nothing but the highest of regard and much love that I give a massive shout out to my best friends in the true 90s kids tier. Of course, I certainly appreciate the heck out of all my members and patrons, but you guys are something else. The amount of support you show me every month genuinely makes a huge difference in me expanding my creative endeavors and tackling all of my YouTube dreams, even the ones outside of the world of Dusk Till Dawn. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe and give a little praise to the algorithm in hopes that it pushes this one to everybody else. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Peace.